I have just made a major life decision and decided to get a PlayStation 4. GameChuck on Patreon has been asking me, would you ever consider doing a video on video games? The answer is yes, but until recently I haven't had much time to play video games. I've never owned a game console before. I did used to play a lot of games on my computer, but now I'm going to get a PlayStation 4. And I've just purchased 2 games as well. Those games are The Last of Us 1 and Red Dead Redemption 2. And the reason I got those games is because I love the idea of getting immersed into a world. Of not just a world, but the characters too. But the thing about Red Dead is, I guess, the visual element of it, of just riding a horse through the prairies, really helps you to escape from this New England city that I live in. And The Last of Us similarly has such a sort of captivating story and captivating characters and its own kind of world that you can escape into and get lost in, albeit a darker one. The thing is, I don't know if there's a lot to say about their music. The Last of Us has excellent music, but the music tends to come in the most cinematic moments. The music is used almost more as film music rather than game music. And what I mean by that is that the music is most prevalent, most powerful, most hard-hitting in the cutscenes, because The Last of Us is, in a way, part cinema and part game. And The Last of Us uses silence very effectively as well. In action scenes, we don't tend to get a lot of music. Instead, we get silence. And that's powerful because you're listening to the sounds of these zombies, you're trying to sneak past them, that kind of thing. On the other hand, the Grand Theft Auto games and the Red Dead Redemption games, the music during gameplay tends to be pretty monotonous. It tends to be a drone or a simple pulse or something like that. And that's a good decision in a way, because it makes it very easy during a mission, whatever the player is doing, you'll get this dum 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 dum, and it increases tension and it increases the sort of sense of being on edge without having to write too much interactive music. The most interesting aspect of video game music, of course, is the fact that it is interactive, that you can play a game and it'll be soft, calm music, and suddenly you'll run into an enemy or you run into a challenge, and seamlessly the music will turn into action music. And then when the action is over, it'll seamlessly turn back into environmental music. And that action music might have layers as well. I remember I used to play a game called Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, and there was an option on the menu. You could listen to the music from different missions, and that music had layers. So you could click on layer 1 and it would just be the bass line. Then you could click on layer 2 and it would be the bass line plus some extra level of action, all the way up to something like level 4, where it would be full on intense. So it had different layers of action. Now I'm going to be frank, I don't know a lot about video game music, and I'd like to learn more. But there was one composer who early on had a huge impact on me, and that was Jeremy Soule. I used to play the Harry Potter games on computer, the early ones, games 1, 2, and 3 on computer, and I loved them. But I loved the music. It's a totally different approach to Harry Potter than, say, John Williams in the films, but hauntingly beautiful in its own kind of way. And there was one track in particular in Jeremy Soule's soundtracks that really sort of haunted me for years, and that was the track in the PlayStation games. It's called Diagon Alley. It's in Chamber of Secrets, by the way. It's called Diagon Alley. In the computer games, it was the pause menu sound. It was the pause menu music in the Chamber of Secrets game, and there was something about this that was stunningly beautiful, but also strangely complex. It was very hard to work out what chords was he using, what harmony was he using, what's the melody doing, and also the texture. The texture was so beautiful, using kind of Celeste and piano and harp and these dark low strings, which he mixed to make them so bassy. And there's something really beautiful about it. And I found it playing in my head years later, literally 10, 12 years later. And I thought, I want to work this out on piano. And I looked up transcriptions on YouTube, and there's something subtle about the complexity of this music that meant that all of the transcriptions I found on YouTube were just wrong. I mean, no offense to the people who put the work in, because much of it was right. But you'll notice if you listen to the original Jeremy Soule track and then you listen to these piano transcriptions, they got it wrong. And so I thought, I'll try doing it myself, and I'm not sure I got it completely right either. But while I was transcribing this track, I noticed some very peculiar things about it, some very unconventional decisions that Jeremy Soule has made, partly in terms of composing and partly in terms of mixing. This will be a very amateur analysis, because it's just curiosities rather than a full-blown analysis of Jeremy Soule's music, but I thought that some of you might like to see. So here is my transcription. Forgive my handwriting. The first thing you'll notice is here in the harp, piano, and bells, or celeste, that kind of thing, the way it's mixed. It sounds like the harp and piano are playing together, but actually the piano has a relatively simple melody, just going yum, bum, bum, ba-dum. Meanwhile, the harp goes ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Have a listen to that. What I think is more interesting or more beautiful is how the strings have very strong voice leading. They're not simply putting down block chords. Each line in the cello and bass parts have their own interesting melody, which come together in harmony. Take a listen to this first part. And then listen to the strings in the second part, how there's this wonderful chain of suspensions going down in the cellos. What's interesting as well is the bass pizzicato part. Normally bass pizzicato would simply hit the strong beats of the bar, beats 1 and beats 3 in this case. However, here it's quite different. He tends to focus on the weaker beats of the bar. Here it's beats 2 and beats 4. Down here it's doing all kinds of things on the weaker beats of the bar. But moreover, it's an interesting line. It's not simply hitting the obvious notes in the chord, but doing its own melodic thing. Have a listen to the bass pizzicato bit. You'll have to listen carefully. And this is where I had to stop. But you notice that there's still interesting parts. The chimes are added, or the tubular bells. The celeste has this, see, I've written murky here. The reason I had to stop is because my piano is always a quarter tone flat, so this became impossible to transcribe. But he makes this celeste have this glassy, blurry melody. It's gorgeous. But even here, the bass pizzicato is avoiding hitting the strong beats of the bar. What's interesting about this, I guess, this is a very gentle look at one of my favourite pieces of Jeremy Soule, but it just goes to show the power of his brain, really. His ability to step far away from the conventional and to find a musical landscape which works so brilliantly with the world of Harry Potter. So there it was, as I say, not the most in-depth analysis, but it is something interesting about how originality, or how doing something different can just make a piece of music that much more beautiful. I would like to learn more about video game music, and I would like to explore more video games in the limited time that I have. If any of you have a recommendation for a game I could buy for PlayStation 4, or if any of you have a recommendation for a YouTube channel or something like that where I can learn more about video game music, then I'd be really interested, and perhaps in the future I'll play a game and I'll be able to talk more in depth about music. I just have never felt qualified before to talk about a game's music, because I don't feel like I should talk about a game's music unless I've really immersed myself in that game and learnt why it works, where it works, how it works, all the details. And at the moment, I'm still a bit of a noob. So anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you, GameChuck, for the question. If any of you have any questions or suggestions for videos I should make, you can visit my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/Inside the Score, and I'll be happy to look at your suggestions or questions and answer them or make a video on them. So thanks very much, and see you soon.